Good afternoon, namaskar. Good afternoon and namaskar. Welcome to this webinar, which is on the very specific campaign which was launched by Honorable the Chief Justice of India and Pattern-in-Chief NALSA on 16th of July 2022 in the 18th All India Legal Services Authorities meet at Jaipur. This campaign pertains to release of under trial prisoners by the under trial review committees. As you are aware, NALSA has issued SOP for functioning of the under trial review committees, and whenever we have requested all of you to be specific on particular issues during first wave of the pandemic and the also second wave of the pandemic, we have got good result. Encouraged from those successes, we have devised this campaign just to help such individuals and under trials who are eligible to be released on bail on the recommendation of UTRCs on the occasion of 75th Independence Day of our mother nation, and which we are celebrating as Azadi Ka Amrit Mahotsav. With me is Miss Madhurima and Miss Sugandha Shankar. Both are resources and well-known expert in the field. I am handing over the further process to them and requesting all of you to post your questions only after the presentation is over. Thank you. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. As Sir has introduced, I am Madhurima and I am joined by my colleague Sugandha. And we will be talking about a little bit more about the campaign document, which has already been shared with all of you. And we are hopeful that you have gone through the contents and the steps that are required to fulfill the campaign mandate. But before I go on to the stages, I want to talk a little bit about the reasons behind the campaign and what the purpose is. As you all know, the UTRCs, or the Under Trial Review Committees, have been in existence since 2015 as an outcome of a Supreme Court directive. The primary purpose of the UTRCs has been to periodically review the cases of under trial prisoners and recommend for release of those prisoners on bail to the concerned courts. In its 5 years or 7 years of functioning, the UTRCs have progressed through the functioning of the SOP that NALSA had prepared and submitted to the Supreme Court in 2018. However, in practice, it has been found that in many cases, the under trials cases that are reviewed are only those that pertain to Section 436A and 436, as well as those of people who have been granted bail but cannot furnish security. However, the UTRC SOP talks about 14 category of cases where the cases must be reviewed. Additionally, this campaign talks about two more categories which could be included as part of this campaign itself. So now there are overall 16 categories which are required to be reviewed and then recommended for release as per the directives or as per the understanding of the UTRC committees themselves. Now I'll quickly go through the stages of the campaign, but the primary purpose, as I have said, is to review and release under trials because the percentage of under trials has consistently arisen in the country, especially during the pandemic, with several states, including Delhi and others, which are now showing rates of 90% proportion of under trial prisoners. All states and UTs in India are, as of today, showing more than 50% of under trial populations, and that is a worrisome issue. Backed by this data, NALSA decided to come out with this campaign to effectuate a, a mission mode version of release of prisoners, of review and releasing the cases, and so that there is no single prisoner or under trial prisoner in the country whose case has not been reviewed, or in which case a bail petition can be filed is not filed. So that being the purpose, I will now share what the steps are, and then we will discuss how to make this campaign more effective. So as you have all received this document and have gone through the content, in which there is a short introduction, there is a description of the various orders of the Supreme Court in relation to the UTRC. Now, in the context of the campaign, 2.8 is what I am referring to of the campaign that was shared. The formal launch, as Sir had said, of the campaign was done on 16th of July. Now, the next steps, which some of them and some of you must have already undertaken, is first is to convey the information regarding the campaign to all possible stakeholders. This is an important step because often, even though the Secretary DLSA, the paralegals, the lawyers might be aware of the campaign, lawyers, judicial officers, prison officers, they are not aware of such campaigns, and that could lead to inordinate delays in submission and completion of the information. That's the very first important step to be conducted in this week. So let us divide this campaign. This campaign runs from 16th of July till the 15th of August. In between, the first week, which is the week we are in now, the 18th to the 22nd July week, is important in terms of A, sharing information about the campaign with all possible stakeholders, B, compiling the information on the basis of which the lists of eligible prisoners needs to be prepared. Now we are in the middle of this week, and by the 21st, we have received some queries on how to enter the data into the Excel sheet that has been shared for collation of information. We will be addressing all those queries and concerns today and providing further information which has not yet been covered either in the campaign document or in the PowerPoint that has been shared. So with that, today we are on 21st of July. By now, I hope that the Excel sheet that was shared with all of you has now found its way to the prison, to the specific prisons from where the data has to be collected. Now, the important facet to remember here, and my colleague will also share in detail about data collation and compilation of lists. But the important point here is to note that the prison departments or the prison superintendent is to share all the data with the DLSA secretary. They are not supposed to do the necessary sorting and filtering. That should happen at the DLSA end, not from the prison end. What is required from the prison is to get all necessary information, which will enable your office and the data operators to cull out those lists. This is done to ensure that no single prisoner stays away from a review, either the review by your eyes first and then by the UTRC committee. So the first thing is to send the list to the prison. The second is to receive the list of all prisoners from the prison to your office. I believe some of you may already have done this or might be in the process of doing this. Now, in case of, we understand there would be certain delays when it comes to prisons where there are more than 500 prisoners, specifically in the case of the central prisons. So maybe a couple of days more could be given to them to collate all the information. However, the kind of information that is required to be completed in the Excel sheet from the prison end is easily available at the prison, especially where the NIC software or where the prison management softwares are being used. Therefore, there should not be any inordinate delays in providing that data. It is specific basic data that is required, which only pertains to the prisoner information and the case information. So that data should easily be collated in the sheet. The sheet is an Excel sheet. It's not a software, so it's not difficult to be completed. And we will be having an orientation after this session with the data operators to explain them on how the sheets can be used. Then this is the first week. For the first week, the primary task is to understand the campaign, get the data, collate the data, and prepare the lists. Now, preparation of lists, one of the reasons why the data at 75 file has been shared is to ensure that the collation of the lists is not a very difficult task. Therefore, once the lists are received, based on the instructions and the orientation that the data operators shall be provided today, the preparation of the list can be an easier task. Once the lists are prepared, we move on to week 2. Week 2 is all about the meeting of the UTRC. I do not need to explain in detail how the UTRCs must operate. It is clearly given under the UTRC SOP of NALSA, and all the steps, procedures have been highlighted in that document, and they should be adhered to at the most. So second week is about the UTRC meeting. It is about identifying of the cases, about recommendations, about collation. Now in this campaign mode, the idea is to ensure all information is collated at one place, which is the data at 75 sheet that has been shared. So you will find that there are two sheets in the Excel sheet. One is on the prisoner information. The second is on the action taken and follow-up. The action taken and follow-up has to completely be collated at the end of the DLSA based on the list of the prisoners who are identified, then reviewed, and then recommended. And then the follow-up steps and action taken from there on will move forward. So the second week and thereafter, all the other weeks of this campaign are going to be about action taken and follow-up. We understand that the collation of the data, identification of cases is only the primary step. The major step is about what happens once the cases are identified for recommendation of review. So what happens then? After that, what is important is the action taken and follow-up, the assignment of lawyers, the filing of cases, the hearing of bail applications, and for all of that, it is important that the chairperson or the chairperson of the UTRC committee, also being the district and session judge, can ensure that cases or bails that are filed on behalf of all the under trials who are recommended for release are heard in an expeditious manner. That is vital to the success of this campaign. And that is my request and urge to all the secretary DLSAs to please ensure that you brief the district and session judges about the necessity of this expediting the hearing of the bail applications in the courts. Now, there is another facet to this campaign, is that filing of bail applications and rejections should not only be stalled at the end of the district. It can also go up to the High Court. It should also go up to the Supreme Court, for which certain steps have been pointed out and identified, and my colleague will share with them in a minute. The final step where the DLSA's involvement is required is on the submission of the final data at 75 list. We do not want just the data. We want the entire list so that we can ensure at NALSA's end, NALSA can ensure that the UTRCs functioned as they were supposed to. The campaign has been carried out in letter and spirit. And that is the data at 75 list, which must be shared with NALSA by 13th of August with the final report on the recommendation, releases, etc. Nothing new information is required. All that will be required is that the list, the Excel sheet is populated with all the progress, how many bail applications filed, how many bail applications heard, everything will be available based on that list, and national figures will be populated based on this information. Now, the time period may be worrying for some. It is quite short. However, what is to be remembered is the purpose behind the campaign is to ensure that every single under trial prisoner's case is reviewed by the UTRC any possible release consideration is provided to all such persons. And ultimately, it is, of course, to reduce the prison overcrowding, reduce the proportion of under trials, which has increased substantively amid the pandemic in this country. Thank you. I'll hand it now over to my colleague Sugandha, who will take you through each of these steps and provide some insights and guidance on how these can be done. Of course, we understand all of you are experienced in the functioning of the UTRCs, but in relation to the campaign, there are certain facets which can be prioritized, which can be taken up, which will benefit the success of this campaign today. So now I hand it over to Sugandha.
Good afternoon, everyone. I request all of you to come to page 7 of the campaign, which is 4.2, point 4.2 regarding collection of data in the prescribed format. What I would do is I will speak in a mix in English and Hindi so that it's clearer to all of you. So the first point is that the list of under trials with necessary details need to be compiled by the DLSA for each prison in their jurisdiction, including central, district prison, sub-jails, women prison, special prison, hostel or any other prison. So DLSA secretaries को ये ensure करना है कि उनके jurisdiction में जितनी भी जेलें हैं, उन सब जेलों में जितने under trials हैं, उनका डेटा कंपाइल होना चाहिए, जो शीट हम आपसे थोड़ी देर में शेयर करेंगे उसमें. Now DLSA secretary shall send the prescribed format for collation of data of all under trials to each prison in their district jurisdiction. ये ऑफ कोर्स 18 जुलाई तक नहीं हो पाया है, बट ये अब आगे आपके लिए जो 3 दिन का में आप यही काम करेंगे, दैट you need to ensure that ये जो है ये prison के पास ये information पहुंच जाए. Now one thing for us to understand that you already know that prison does not have all the information that is required to be mentioned in that format. So prison superintendents के पास, prison authorities के पास जो भी data है based on the warrants that they have from the court, they will mention that information. And for the rest of the information that is required for this campaign, for that I request the DLSA secretaries to formulate a team of retainer lawyers, jail visiting lawyers and PLBs. तो आप एक टीम बनाइए अपनी as per your requirement. अगर आपके यहाँ सेंट्रल जेल्स और नंबर ऑफ जेल्स ज्यादा हैं, सो ये आपके जो टीम है ये बड़ी बन सकती है. जहाँ कम नंबर ऑफ प्रिजन्स हैं, देयर द टीम कुड बी स्मॉलर. सो एज पर योर रिक्वायरमेंट आप एक टीम बनाइए अपने रिटेनर लॉयर्स की, जेल विजिटिंग लॉयर्स जो ऑलरेडी प्रिजन लीगल एड क्लिनिक पे काम कर रहे हैं, और पैरालीगल वॉलंटियर्स जो प्रिजन लीगल एड क्लिनिक के काम से जुड़े हुए हैं, और या कोई और भी पैरालीगल, उनकी एक टीम बनाइए. जो भी एडिशनल इंफॉर्मेशन आपको रिक्वायर्ड है वो आप कलेक्ट कर सके कोर्ट्स से. अब मैं आगे बढ़ती हूँ. Actually, just go to that PPT. एक मिनट का समय लेंगे हम. जी, तो ये कैंपेन के अलावा जो कुछ एडिशनल इंफॉर्मेशन है वो मैं आपके साथ शेयर करना चाहूंगी. जैसे कि मैंने कहा, तो इस कैंपेन का जो मेन जो जिस पे ये टिका हुआ है वो आपके डीएलएसए सेक्रेटरीज और प्रिजन सुपरिटेंडेंट्स के कोऑर्डिनेशन पे इसकी सफलता डिपेंड करती है. सो आई रिक्वेस्ट ऑल द डीएलएसए सेक्रेटरीज टू क्लोजली कोऑर्डिनेट विद ऑल द प्रिजन सुपरिटेंडेंट्स, और जहां जितनी जरूरत हो आप प्लीज जेल विजिटिंग लॉयर्स के साथ भी कोऑर्डिनेट करते रहें. जो स्पेशल इंस्ट्रक्शंस आपको प्रिजन सुपरिटेंडेंट्स को देनी है, द इंस्ट्रक्शंस दैट नीड्स टू बी गिवन टू द प्रिजन सुपरिटेंडेंट्स, एंड प्रिजन सुपरिटेंडेंट्स इंक्लूड्स ऑफिसर्स इन चार्ज ऑफ ऑल प्रिजन्स. So it could be that in sub jails, prison superintendent is not there, but a jailer is holding a charge or a head warder is holding a charge. So the head of the prison से आपको ये information share करनी है. So the first step is of course to compile the list of all under trials in their prison. जितने भी under trials उनकी jail में as on 15th of July 2022, 15 जुलाई 2022 की जो डेट है वो एक कट ऑफ डेट को माना गया है, जो आपके कैंपेन में भी मेंशन है. एज ऑन दैट डेट जितने अंडर ट्रायल्स आपकी जेल में थे हैं उनकी जो लिस्ट है वो प्रिपेयर होगी. एंड दिस लिस्ट इंक्लूड्स persons who are detained under chapter 8 of the CRPC, that is under section 107, 8 or 9 or 151. तो ये क्योंकि स्पेसिफिकली ये हमारे नालसा एसओपी में और ये सुप्रीम कोर्ट के डायरेक्शन में ये कैटेगरी मेंशन्ड है. कुछ स्टेट्स में in some states this category probably may not come under as under trial, but this has to be included in the list. So therefore it is specifically mentioned here. Now, the other thing that needs to be explained to the officer in charge of the prison is that when we share the Excel sheet with you, you'll see that there is a column at the end which is called remarks column, and they need to specifically mention in that list if any under trial is sick or infirm, or if the under trial is mentally ill, or is physically disabled, or is undergoing medical treatment for serious or prolonged illness, or needs any specialized treatment, or is not produced either physically or through video conferencing in the last 1 month, or is unable to furnish surety or can afford lesser surety amount, or any other special condition that is important for review of the case. So ये जो special instructions हैं, so for example other conditions में आपके women prisoners से related अगर कोई pregnant women है, अगर कोई lactating women prisoner है, so ये सब information जो है that needs to be put in that Excel sheet under the remarks column by the officer in charge of the prison, because these criteria, these conditions we do not get to know by merely looking at the offense or the warrant. This is something that is the additional information that is available with the prison superintendent who have the physical custody of the under trials. Now, regarding shortlisting of the cases, as I mentioned earlier, please take as much assistance as you require from the retainer lawyers, jail visiting lawyers, and PLVs to seek that additional information from the courts. And the primary responsibility of shortlisting of cases, as Madhurima also mentioned, is with the DLSA secretaries. So, and unka jo coordination hai with the data operators and with the prison superintendent, so that has to continue. Now, this is only a suggestive, the next few slides are only suggestive to ensure that all the 16 categories of cases that are mentioned in the campaign are covered by the DLSA in during the campaign. So therefore, we've just mentioned on how to shortlist these cases under the 16 categories. So first category for us is the UTPs falling under section 436A of the CRPC. So my colleague will also explain when the sheet is shared with you, the Excel sheet. But for IPC offenses and for special laws offenses, it gets automatically calculated in that sheet. So you don't need to do anything further. It will tell you automatically whether the person is eligible under 436A or not. However, for a mix of offenses where there is a case where there is probably a mix of some special law or a local law along with an IPC offense, that needs to be calculated manually, because for that you will need to find out first the maximum, the highest imprisonment that is mentioned in the law is under which offense, and then the half term of that needs to be calculated. So that is the thing that will need to be calculated manually. And then the same could be added in the Excel sheet, the data at 75 sheet. The second category is of under trials released on bail by the court but have not been able to furnish sureties. So I request the DLSA secretaries again to seek this information through their team of retainer lawyers, jail visiting lawyers or PLVs, and direct them to find out if any such case are there in the district courts. Then for cases falling outside the jurisdiction of the concerned district courts. So this may happen with a number of cases. So in such a case, the DLSA secretary needs to coordinate with the DLSA secretary of the respective district where the case is pending, and to seek the required information, whether that's about bail no surety cases or about 436A or about any other category that's mentioned under the UTRC. तो जो भी केसेस आपके DLSA के बाहर के jurisdiction के हैं, किसी और DLSA के jurisdiction के हैं, तो आपको DLSA secretary को उन दूसरे डिस्ट्रिक्ट के DLSA secretaries के साथ coordinate करना पड़ेगा ये additional information लेने के लिए. Now, the third category that is mentioned in the NALSA SOP and directed by the Honorable Supreme Court is UTPs accused of compoundable offences. ये जो है आपकी sheet में automatically calculate हो जाएगा. This gets automatically calculated, so we don't need to worry about this. The fourth category is under trials eligible under section 436 of the CRPC. This will also get automatically calculated. That will highlight for you that this person is eligible under section 436. So again, we don't need to worry about this. The fifth category, UTPs who may be covered under section 3 of the Probation Offenders Act, namely accused of offence under section 379, 380, 381, 404, 420 IPC or alleged to be an offence not more than 2 years imprisonment. So as the DLSA secretaries very well know, this needs to be the eligibility for such cases needs to be checked as per the first schedule of the CRPC and section 3 of the Probation of Offenders Act. The sixth category is where the charge sheet is not filed within the statutory limit as prescribed in the CRPC or any other special law. So, uske liye the DLSA secretaries, again, this information will not be available with the prisons, and therefore, again, you need to take help from the team of your lawyers, jail visiting lawyers, retainer lawyers, or PLVs to cull out this information, particular information from the district courts where charge sheet has not been filed within the statutory time limit. The seventh category is UTPs who are imprisoned for offences which carry a maximum punishment of 2 years. So this is also automatically calculated in the sheet. We don't need to worry about this. Eighth, UTPs who are detained under Chapter 8 of the CRPC, that is under Section 107, 8, 9 or 151. So for that, because the section numbers will be specifically mentioned in the sheet, so with the help of the data operators, you could just use the sort and filter feature in the Excel sheet and identify the prisoners who are detained under these particular sections. Now, the ninth category is under trials who are sick or infirm and require specialized medical treatment. So, as I mentioned earlier, this is something that needs to be asked specifically from the prison superintendent or officer in charge of the prison, and then needs to be mentioned in the Excel sheet. So, in case such kind of remarks are not mentioned by the prison superintendents in the sheet, please ask them once again and ensure that we don't leave anyone from the eligible categories. The 10th category is UTPs, women offenders. Now this is a very broad category, and this could have a number of there could be a number of women offenders who are detained in, especially in central prisons. So there the DLSA secretaries could find out through their team of lawyers and PLVs if in any case of women prisoner, women under trial, the bail has never been filed, or as we discussed earlier, to check with the superintendent if the person, if the woman prisoner is with a child, or is pregnant. So those kind of information could be or any other specific vulnerability could be checked, and such cases could be shortlisted for review by the UTRC. Now, the 11th category is UTPs who are first time offenders between the ages 19 and 21 years and in custody for the offense punishable with less than 7 years of imprisonment and have suffered at least 1/4 of the maximum sentence possible. Now, this list, again, the age criteria is mentioned in the Excel sheet. So again, with the help of the data operator, you could use the sort and filter feature to first see if anyone is in this age group of 19 to 21 years. And then the rest, whether the offense is less than 7 years and whether the 1/4 of the sentence is completed or not, this would have to be checked manually. So you need to be little careful here. Then the 12th category is under trials who are of unsound mind and must be dealt with Chapter 25 of the code. As I mentioned earlier, this needs to be specifically written by the prison superintendent, and please ask the prison superintendents to mention it if this particular information about the mental illness of a person is communicated to the concerned trial court or not, and whether any action has been taken by the court, whether the court has taken cognizance of that information, because a lot of times people develop mental illness while in prison. So this information has to be communicated from the prison to the concerned court. Now, if the person has been declared a person of unsound mind by the court, then the one thing that could be checked with the prison superintendent is that if there is any family member in whose care the person could be released on bail, because generally the prison superintendents are aware about whether the person has any connect with the family or not. And as the provisions of Chapter 25 are there, and they provide that a person could be released on bail if there is a family member who comes up and takes the is ready to take the care of the person. So that could be particularly checked with the prison superintendent. The 13th category is UTPs eligible for release under Section 437, Clause 6 of CRPC, wherein in a case triable by a magistrate, the trial of a person accused of any non-bailable offence has not been concluded within a period of 60 days from the first date fixed for taking evidence in the case. So this is something which is very technical, and definitely this information will not be with the prisons. And I would request the DLSA secretaries to please ask your team of lawyers and PLBs to find this particular case if anyone is eligible under this particular section 437(6) of the CRPC while getting the information from the courts. The 14th category is those under, okay, so till 13th category, these are the 13 categories which are already mentioned in the NALSA SOP and as has been directed by the Honorable Supreme Court. The 14th category that is mentioned in the NALSA SOP is particularly in regard to convicts. So this category of convicts has been particularly excluded from this campaign. So please note that the same is also mentioned in the campaign document that is shared with you. So these 13 categories are as per the NALSA SOP and Supreme Court directions. Now there are 3 additional categories that have been incorporated or added to this particular campaign. So the 14th category is those under trials who were granted interim bail by the court during the pandemic, and they have adhered to all the conditions of the bond, and either they have returned to the prison, or on the stipulated date which was set out by the court, or the HPC, the high powered committee, or they have regularly attended the court on the due hearings that were there. So therefore this is one category where the person was released on interim bail but now is in prison, and he had complied to all the conditions of the court when he was outside, basically when he was released. So आपको ये देखना है कि कोई अंडर ट्रायल जो इंटरिम बेल पे पैंडेमिक के दौरान छूटा हुआ था, बाहर था, और उसने कोर्ट की सभी जो डायरेक्शंस हैं, कंडीशंस हैं बेल बॉन्ड की, उनको ठीक से कंप्लाई किया, उनको माना, और वो टाइमली अपनी हियरिंग पे भी सभी हियरिंग्स पे कोर्ट में पहुंचा. तो ऐसे केसेस में यूटीआरसी ये इस तरह के केसेस शॉर्टलिस्ट किए जा सकते हैं, और यूटीआरसी रिकमेंड कर सकती है, कंसिडर कर सकती है उनके केसेस को, इफ their bail could be extended, and if that interim bail जो अब खत्म हो गई है, but that they could be released on regular bail. So that is something that could be, again this needs to be checked manually by the DLSA secretaries in coordination with prison superintendents. The 15th category is those under trials who are accused of or charged with the offense for which the maximum imprisonment is up to 7 years or less. तो आप ये सब आप सब लोग जानते हैं कि ये जो कैटेगरी है ये खुद सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने पैंडेमिक के दौरान जो रिट पिटिशन चल रहा था इन कंटेजियन ऑफ COVID-19 वायरस इन prisons, this was the category suggested by the Supreme Court. And they had specifically said that the HPCs, the high powered committees, must recommend the release of such under trials from the prison, और जो कि काफी हद तक रिलीज भी हुए थे पैंडेमिक के दौरान. तो this is something that the category is again added here, and therefore आपको ये मैनुअली चेक करना पड़ेगा कि कौन से ऑफेंसेस जो हैं जिनमें 7 साल से कम की सजा है फर्स्ट शेड्यूल के हिसाब से, उनको आपको शॉर्टलिस्ट करना होगा. The 16th category is those under trials who are above 65 years of age. So again pandemic को ध्यान में रखते हुए और age को ध्यान में रखते हुए ये category add करी है. So any person who is above the age of 65 years, again this is something that could be done by sorting and filtering the Excel sheet, where you can specifically see if anyone is above 65 years of age. तो ये हमारी शॉर्ट लिस्टिंग की बात हुई 16 कैटेगरीज की, किस तरह से DLSA सेक्रेटरीज इनको शॉर्ट लिस्ट करेंगे. Now we would like to go back. Can we go back? Can you share this? जी. ये जैसे कि आप देख रहे हैं ये 13 कैटेगरीज यहाँ मेंशन्ड हैं, और ये एडिशनल 3 कैटेगरीज भी हमारे कैंपेन डॉक्यूमेंट में मेंशन है. शॉर्टलिस्टिंग की हम बात कर चुके हैं, यहाँ पे ये थोड़ा रिपीट हो रहा है, देयर इज अ टाइपो, तो प्लीज इग्नोर दैट इन द कैंपेन. अब जैसे मधुरमा जी ने बताया दैट द फर्स्ट UTRC मीटिंग विल बी कंडक्टेड ऑन 25th of July, तो उससे पहले ये डेटा जो है डेटा ऑपरेटर्स की मदद से उस एक्सेल शीट में आ जाए, और काफी कुछ कैटेगरीज तो जैसे हमने देखा ऑटोमेटिकली शॉर्टलिस्ट हो जाएंगी, पर कुछ कैटेगरीज के लिए थोड़ा एफर्ट हमें करना पड़ेगा. नाउ ईच केस टू बी रिव्यूड एंड रिकमेंडेशंस मेड एज पर डिस्क्रिप्शन ऑफ द कमिटी. और जो ये रिकमेंडेशंस हैं ये आप दीज आर वेरी क्लियरली मेंशन्ड इन द नालसा SOP, where it's written that for each category of case किस तरह का recommendations UTRC दे सकती हैं. So that is something that needs to be seen by all the UTRC members. So DLSA secretaries can refer them during the meeting. You can refer to the NALSA SOP and to all the members. You can inform them that these are the directions which could be given. And as Madhurima also mentioned, that this data then will need to be shared with the NALSA as well. So ये हमारा मीटिंग्स का हो गया. आपको ब्रीफली हमने एक फॉर्मेट आपको कैंपेन में दिया हुआ है, हाउ टू प्रिपेयर द मिनट्स ऑफ द UTRC मीटिंग्स. So these minutes for the UTRC meetings, where it will be decided the specific recommendations for each case will be there. So out of the shortlisted cases, उसमें से कौन से cases recommend हुए, वो सारा information जो है वो minutes में आना चाहिए, and those minutes will then be shared with all the members of the committee, concerned courts जहाँ भी वो cases pending हैं उनके साथ, and person in charge of the record room in district court. So we thought that for better coordination with files and for culling out relevant information, चाहे वो preparation stage हो, चाहे वो follow up stage हो, तो अगर वो minutes जो person in charge है record room, उनको उनके साथ भी share हो और उनको भी एक बार इसका DLSA secretaries inform कर दें about the campaign, so that will be helpful in the overall coordination of the campaign. The format is already there in the campaign document. Now the filing of bail applications. Now, where the cases of under trials are represented by panel lawyers or legal aid lawyers, in such cases the DLSA secretaries shall direct the concerned lawyer to file appropriate application in the concerned court by 28th of July. So excuse me. So therefore, DLSA secretaries, जहाँ legal aid lawyers appointed हैं जिन cases में, वहाँ तो direct information जा सकता है, direct उनको किया जा सकता है panel lawyer को application file करने के लिए. However, there is a typo here in 4.7.2. Recommended cases where under trials are represented by private lawyers. This should be private lawyers and not legal aid lawyers. So please note that. So in such cases, DLSA आपने जो अपना एक जो ग्रुप बनाया है पैनल लॉयर्स का, सॉरी जो रिटेनर लॉयर्स, जेल विजिटिंग लॉयर्स और PLVs का, you can take their help, and those lawyers could be assigned certain cases to coordinate with the concerned private lawyers and to ensure that their bail applications are timely filed. So जहाँ जहाँ प्राइवेट लॉयर्स हैं जिन केसेस में, वहां पे आप एक रिटेनर लॉयर की या PLV की ड्यूटी लगा दीजिए टू कोऑर्डिनेट विद द प्राइवेट लॉयर. उनको सबसे पहले तो इन्फॉर्म करना कि आपके क्लाइंट का केस जो है UTRC ने रिकमेंड किया है, एंड देयरफॉर दिस पर्टिकुलर बेल एप्लीकेशन और एनी अदर अप्रोप्रिएट एप्लीकेशन नीड्स टू बी फाइल्ड इन द कंसर्न कोर्ट. तो वो एक कोऑर्डिनेशन के लिए आपको PLV या रिटेनर्स या जेल विजिटिंग लॉयर्स की वहां पे सहायता आप ले सकते हैं. नाउ एक्शन टेकन ऑन रिकमेंडेड केसेस. तो ये एक सजेस्टेड इसमें मेथड दिया गया है that every district and session judge shall direct all the courts to hear the bail or appropriate applications in the UTRC recommended cases on urgent basis. So this has to be heard on an urgent basis. जो भी bail applications हैं, and if the district and session courts could direct that the last hour of every day from 28th to 12th July, 28th July to 12th August, जो हमारा campaign का period है, if that is something that could be dedicated, the last hour में court hours में ये application सुनी जा सकती हैं और उन पे क्या action लिया गया उसको भी तभी के तभी document किया जा सकता है. अगेन जो है कंसर्न फाइल्स की अगर बात है, कंसर्न इंफॉर्मेशन जो भी चाहिए, जो पर्सन इंचार्ज है रिकॉर्ड्स रूम के, उनके साथ भी ये कोऑर्डिनेशन आप कर सकते हैं. it is the duty of, अब आपको वो action taken report कैसे पता चलेगी? So it is the duty of the panel lawyer representing the under trial to note the action of the court on the application filed and must report to the DLSA the same day. तो जहाँ legal aid lawyers हैं, panel lawyers appointed हैं जिन cases में, वहाँ समस्या नहीं है because they can directly come and inform the DLSA. However, again, where there are private lawyers, तो आप अपने जो आपने जिन PLVs को या lawyers को वो cases assign किए हैं to coordinate with the panel lawyers, you can ask them only to report back to the DLSA as to what action is being taken in that case. The district in session, judge shall direct all the judicial officers to submit a copy of the order passed to the DLSA secretary after considering the bail or appropriate application. And ये जो जैसे जैसे आपके पास information आती जाएगी on what action has been taken, whether the person has been released on bail, if not released on bail, if there's any other direction that is being given, if the person is discharged or the case is being now expedited, जो भी action taken ले रहा है concerned court, that needs to be filled up in the Excel sheet that we'll share with you very soon. And finally जो है इसकी जो एक report है वो नालसा में आपको submit करनी है. Now regarding एक बार दोबारा से PowerPoint. नहीं, second. So so review of shortlisted cases. जो है ये हमने बात की है कि नालसा की SOP में ये clearly mentioned है, तो ये आप वहाँ से देख सकते हैं. follow up or action taken के लिए, as I said, please take as much assistance from your retainer lawyers and PLVs, and so that this information reaches you. This is one of the gaps that is currently faced by many UTRCs in the functioning of UTRCs. So we want to ensure कि ये information आपके पास जल्द से जल्द पहुँचे. So I'll stop here. Thank you. If you have any questions, please mention it on the group and we can.
They have many questions. I can maybe ask and you can probably respond. So one of the first questions that came was whether the minutes of the meetings are to be prepared after the action taken is done. So the minutes of the meeting are to be prepared after every UTRC meeting. So in the first meeting, of course, the directions up till you will have to complete the columns up till recommendation by the UTRC, which is if you can see it's here. And yeah, page number 14. So you will have to look at till that column, and in every subsequent UTRC meeting, the action taken by the concerned court can be updated based on what has been completed in the Excel sheet. So this is regarding the minutes of the meeting and when they are supposed to be submitted. There is another question in the chat about what is to be done in cases where bail has been granted, but there is an inability to provide surety. So you can look at it.
Yeah. So this is clearly mentioned in the NALSA SOP that what could be done in those cases. So when the UTRC is reviewing those cases, they can definitely see, if the surety amount could be reduced based on the socio-economic background of the person, and a specific bail application could be filed under Section 440 of the CRPC. So that is something that could be considered by the UTRC.
The second question we received was about what happens where there are more than one offences. How does the sheet calculate, or how do you calculate if it's being done manually? So in this situation, the default has been to use to keep them as concurrent punishments for the offences. Therefore, if there are 5 offences, if the highest punishment is 5 years, and that is what will be taken. So 2.5 will become the half term, and the maximum will be 5. So where there are multiple, that is how the sheet also calculates the same. Then there is another question on whether cases above 65 years who are charged under section 302 are to be considered. So my response would be that yes, do consider such cases where there has been inordinate delay. So look at the period of detention, look at where the stage of the case is, and you can apply your discretion in seeing if those such cases should be in the list which goes to the UTRC committee. So there will be your discretion, then there'll be a discretion by the committee, and then of course the final bail comes from the concerned court. So that should be enough level of reviews in cases where prisoners are there for heinous offences. However, given the premise of this campaign, no prisoner should, not get a benefit if there is any such benefit that may be provided given the age of the certain person. Then there is another question on when the data should be shared with NALSA. So the data is to be shared with NALSA and not the SLSA, because NALSA wanted to see how the sheets were being populated and the kind of information that was being gathered at the district. And given the campaign, it was thought the data operators at NALSA could probably do it better. So the data has to be shared after you have identified the list. So what has to be shared are the lists of eligible persons. So you can share the populated Excel sheet could be shared with NALSA, or you could share the lists. That is up to you. Now there is another question in the chat box which regards to that the sheet under the data at 75 Excel cannot be printed. So the idea is not really to print from there. The idea is to help in preparation of the list, because that has often seen to be very time taking. So the idea is that you use that sheet and then you can create your lists by sorting the list, and then that content can easily be copied into a Word file, or you can use the landscape mode. So your data operators will be very easily able to copy those tables into sheets and then print them off. So that should not be an issue. Instead of trying to print directly from the sheet, the idea is to have all the information there, so it's easy to keep track. Otherwise, what happens is there are too many documents, and then prisoners' cases can often, that kind of diligence in terms of identifying the action taken is not really done. So the idea is to have all the data in an Excel sheet so that there is constant review and reporting on what action is being taken on that. Yeah, these were the ones I listed down, but I think there are others here as well. So, yeah. So now there is a question about what happens to the local laws. So there are IPC offences, then there are special laws, and then there are local laws. So most of the all the IPC offences and most of the special laws are already included into the sheet. The local laws can either be you can either calculate them manually, or they could be added to the sheet, and that process will be explained in the second round of orientation that will be taken for the DLSA data operators and the prison superintendents. So it can be done both ways. So the idea of the sheet, it's not complicated. It may look complicated. It's supposed to simplify the process. It's there to assist where it feels to be complicated. You are free to do manual calculations and put in. You can always add data to the Excel sheet manually as well. The idea is to ensure that all information about every prisoner who is eligible for release can be collated at one place. So that is just for that assistance purpose. Now we'll go through the other questions that have come by, and we have, I think, 3 minutes more. So cases that have been referred. Those 16 cases are clearly mentioned in the campaign document. If you have not received it, then I think you can email NALSA and a copy can be sent.
एक सवाल आई थिंक जो बार बार आ रहा है कि विमेन के लिए थोड़ा और क्लैरिफाई होना चाहिए. तो जैसे कि हमने कहा कि कुछ ही चीजें हम उसमें देख सकते हैं कि जैसे अगर उनके विमेन प्रिजनर्स के केसेस में बेल नहीं ग्रांट हुई है या बेल फाइल ही नहीं हुई है किसी केस में, या कोई स्पेशल वल्नरेबिलिटी है जिससे कि अगर कोई विमेन प्रिजनर प्रेग्नेंट है या एक छोटे बच्चे के साथ है या कोई बाहर ऐसी कोई उनका बच्चा है who is a dependent and requires the woman to be not to be in prison, तो उस तरह के केसेस ये हम स्पेसिफिकली एकदम मेंशन करना पॉसिबल नहीं है, तो आप प्लीज अपना डिस्क्रिप्शन यूज करें उसमें और देखिए कि जितने लोगों को मैक्सिमम ये बेनिफिट दिया जा सकता है, जितने विमेन अंडर ट्रायल्स के केसेस को दोबारा रिव्यू किया जा सकता है और बेल अगर उनके केसेस में दोबारा से लगाई जा सकती है तो प्लीज डू दैट.
Also, quickly, there is a question about is it necessary to collect the data from the court or from the concerned court? We leave it up to all of you. Nalsa has just given guidelines are there. On the ground, we leave it to the judgment and the experience of all of you on how to do it more expeditiously. The idea is to have all the data in whatever is the easiest way. In some places, it may be to reach out to the concerned court. In some places, it may be to reach out to the court record room. So depending on your specific situation, that can be decided. If one secretary DLSA is looking after 2 districts and whether the date of the UTRC meeting of one district can be postponed to the next day, well, ideally, it could also be done on different times in the day, but again, leaving it up to all of you on how to do it better. The idea is to have a meeting and then identify the cases where a recommendation for release is possible. What about prisoners who are sent to government mental hospitals and are not in jail? If their cases are still pending, then a review of those cases could be undertaken and the benefits that are there under section 328 to 330 of the CRPC can be provided to them. So do not exclude them from the consideration. Women prisoners, we have already identified. Cases under POCSO and NDPS Act be considered. If they fall under any of the categories, definitely they should be considered. There is no rider under the UTRC mandates to exclude any category of cases. So definitely you should consider. There is a request to add offences under the Bihar Prohibition of Excise Act. I have received another such request, and in the orientation later today, I will explain how that can be added at your own level as well. And if not, then we are happy to do that in that case. I think we are now at the end of the hour, and we can probably close this session. And some of them can be, maybe some of the questions can be responded to in the chat later on, and we can look at, and some of them which are related to data can again be taken up in the next orientation with the data operators and others. So on that note, thank you very much. We are happy to respond to any other questions. And you can always email Nalsa for any queries that you have. So best of luck with the campaign, and we hope it is successful in the functioning of the UTRCs. Thank you.